Well, just some reactions coming from my panelists this morning, even as we stand on guard on AM Live. Dr. Mumo Nzau, Governance and Security Strategist. Dr. Njoki Wamai, Assistant Professor, USIU International Relations. Irungu Houghton, Executive Director, Amnesty International Kenya. And of course, Dr. Mustafa Ali, Conflict Resolution and national security expert. Thank you for joining me this morning. Dr. Nzau, what do you make of this? It's been 1 week. We haven't found this lady. Who do you think might be behind it? Because they say they have no idea, but there was assumptions on the ground that this could have been a terrorist act.
Yeah, very important that as we analyze some of these happenings, that we are extremely cautious, extremely careful about what we say. We follow the lead of the security agencies on the ground, as media, as commentators in the background, to get in a way that we do not jeopardize operations. You know, for now, no one would tell you things in certainty, because there is a way things can be said, and then it tampers with many other things. And the first people to react to this were the very investors in places like Malindi, Watamu, and so on, and they said, please don't blow this out of proportion. That place is extremely in the fringes. It's a very isolated case. This could have just been crime, because we've had some time back kidnappings around. There are times we used to have people kidnap children around, and the police were able to, the DCI were able to follow it through slowly without blowing out of proportion, and a lot of those cases have gone down. So this was is an isolated, extremely isolated case, and you know, towards the north, you know, in Kilifi. But at this point, we don't want to say things that would jeopardize police operations. It is true that they are doing search and rescue and so on, but we trust that they should be able to help out and to ensure that the girl is in safety at the end of it. There are a lot of people who end up in these situations. You saw the last time the police were able to save the lady in Moranga who had been, and it was strange, the ringleader was a lady who was 80.
An old woman,
an
yes.
Old lady, yeah.
Actually, she was in her 80s, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So this could be something very similar. You saw the other day the heroic policeman who intervened just here in town when people had been abducted by these people who had kidnapped them and, you know, ran away in a vehicle, and he followed them and he managed to rescue the situation. So at this point, we just want to make sure that we give the police latitude and the security agencies, and we trust that we are going to have a breakthrough in good time, and we remain, you know, in prayer together with the family of Sylvia Romano and the rest. But we don't want to blow the situation out of proportion in a situation that will scare people. The country is stable.
Okay, Dr. Mustafa, the fact that it happened other coast, of course, touches on so many things beyond security, because it's also touching on the very fiber of tourism, the coastal region, and the concerted efforts within the security forces to ensure that they bring her safe and sound has also been dogged with criticism that they reacted to this incident, albeit too slowly. Your thoughts?
Yeah, the location where the kidnap actually happens, a little bit remote, but of course that doesn't mean that the slow response is something that should be, or rather the slow response by the authorities in that part is something that they need to look at and make sure that that actually doesn't happen again, that the response is always swift and ensuring the safety of those people who have been kidnapped. It is unfortunate that an Italian has been kidnapped. That always, when you have a white person kidnapped, it plays out badly on the issues surrounding tourism. The assumption that you know, it's the white people that come for tourism. Well, first of all, the Italian lady was not a tourist; she was a volunteer. It's possible that this is just a criminal kidnapping. That a group has been active there, and so that they could, you know, extort money or steal money in that particular home. I'm not sure at this point Al-Shabaab would make a mistake to come so deep into Malindi to actually carry out such an attack or an operation. There are many criminal elements that ride on terrorist groups, or there are also many criminal elements within a terrorist organization that might break off to try and find ways to get quick buck. And most of them do actually engage in criminal activities, like kidnapping, extortion, and raiding places where they can get money. In terms of the radicalization, recruitment, that has actually come down significantly. We don't see as much radicalization and recruitment en masse as we used to see 4-5 years ago. And that is as a result of so much work and significant work that has been done in counter radicalization, countering violent extremism across the country. And these activities were carried out in more intensity in the Coast Province. We can only wait for the police to give us their final report about this, and we hope and pray that the Italian lady is going to be rescued.
All right, before I part from that topic, Dr. Njoki, immediately this happened, the IG was very quick to come out and just give that reassurance that the police were doing what they could to make sure they find her. But also he assured all those that are in the country for the sustainable blue economy that all was well and that whatever was happening at the coast had no bearing on the security within the city. What is they saying as far as security as a whole and the ripple effects depending on where the attack is vis-a-vis where it's not?
I mean, it's good that he came to reassure, especially the people in the blue economy. It's quite a large number of visitors about Kenya's security, but it also goes to the politics of when these kind of things happen. And we have a history in Kenya from Julie Ward murder case. When you have, say, a white, whether it's a tourist or volunteer, just a foreigner who happens to be white, and the assumption again that tourism or whatever our exchange earner, that this is going to have a ripple effect. So of course, and it does, but also we also need a balance. And I like what Dr. Mustafa was saying, that it's also, it needs to be more measured. I'm happy that even those Malindi residents came to say, look, this may not be even a terrorist incident. It could be just an act of just crime. It doesn't have to be terrorism. So the challenge we have with these incidents, especially when you have foreign nationals, is a ripple effect. Sometimes exaggeration, and rightly so. It's if foreign countries value their citizens more, and so we need to do something. But also the challenge of that is we miss when we have people, also Kenyans who are abducted. Again, we don't see the same kind of rigor from the police, from the media also. So we need a balance, because all lives matter. But it's very unfortunate what's happening to Sylvia. And I hope that she's safe and she can be rescued soon.
Okay. All right. Now, still staying with security matters, the Independent Policing Oversight Authority has condemned the attacks on police officers by members of the public. Now, the body maintained that aggrieved members of the public ought to follow the laid out procedures of registering their complaints and trust that the Oversight Authority IPOA would then investigate and address their concerns.
The multiple attacks on police officers have been well documented on mainstream and social media. The frequency of the incidents increasingly worrying for the Independent Oversight Policing Authority, as it depicts a lack of confidence in the justice system and the institutions meant to check police excesses. In a statement sent to newsrooms, IPOA strongly condemned the attacks on police officers while on duty, terming the actions criminal. The body reiterated that the judiciary is able to handle any grievances, and so taking the law into one's hands is unnecessary. Meanwhile, tuk-tuk drivers from Nakuru town have distanced themselves from the recent attack on 2 traffic police officers by one of their own.
Na hatuwezi jua chanzo ambao ilifanya yule driver afanye mambo kama yale kupigana na maskari. Na kulingana na sheria ni kwamba lazima tuheshimu kila mamlaka. Kwa hivyo maskari walikuwa wanafanya kazi yao.
Hatupendi kuona hiyo maneno ikifanyika hivyo, sababu hii kazi ndio watu wengi wanategemea. Vijana wengi imeajiri vijana wengi town, na kitu kama hiyo ikitendeka inaona itaharibia wengi kazi.
The drivers have, however, asked the relevant authorities to reduce the pressure that they are feeling on the road as the government seeks to enforce the Michuki rules. Charity Mwangi, NTV.
Now, of course, this came from that story earlier on in the week, earlier on in the week, where tuk-tuk operator in Nakuru, who was recorded on video locking horns, literally a violent struggle between him and the 2 traffic police officers. And he says he was actually provoked to that fight. And it's interesting that tuk-tuk operator says he does not he's not remorseful of that incident because he says, and I quote, he decided to defend himself because he had been a victim of constant harassment from traffic officers who demanded bribes. Well, he says that on that day he had stopped him in what he thought would be a routine traffic stop. As he slowed down to stop, one of the officers hit and smashed one of his side mirrors using a police baton, and he got angry and demanded to know why he had destroyed the side mirror, but the officer became arrogant and threatened to tow his tuk-tuk to the Nakuru Central Police Station. It's at this point he decided to resist the harassment, considering that he had seen his colleagues on tuk-tuks part with money earlier on to the same police officers. Well, Irungu, I mean, this is a very sad incident, but either way, there are 2 sides of a coin. IPOA has come out to say follow the right route to actually, document your complaints. But we have a Mwananchi here who's saying enough is enough. If you will not protect me, I will protect myself. Your views?
I mean, I think the IPOA position is correctly taken. I think the line that we must hold is that, first of all, we must respect the law and we respect those that act within the law. It's very unclear, at this stage what, would happen. But I would hope that actually this ends up in a court of law and evidence is produced. I mean, I think the first thing we need to recognize is that many Kenyans are increasingly restless and unhappy with the state of policing. And for those who are using vehicles and tuk-tuks and boda-bodas, there is constant stories we hear of corruption and intimidation and threats and extortion. And I think this is where that story ends. This is what's going to happen if we're not able to reduce the levels of corruption and the intimidation that we see on the roads of our country. But having said that, I think for me this also begins to look like the end, in the sense that if you do not have respect for the rule of law, then what is left? What I think we need to be constantly aware of is that all drivers, all motorists basically have the right for police officers to identify themselves. They must declare what the charge is that they are that they are applying in your case. And secondly, they don't have the right to tow your vehicle. They don't have the right to get into your vehicle. They definitely don't have the right to destroy your property. So if that happens, then actually this is a case. And I think what you'd want is to see this man represented in court so that he has an opportunity to also make his case. And if that is the case, then the police need to be held liable for essentially subverting the law. And, but unfortunately, I think once you get into this level of violence, it's actually difficult for you to prosecute a case cleanly against the police officers.
Dr. Njoki, just listening to this tuk-tuk owner and of course other PSV owners who are saying they're having such a hard time since the Mishuki rules crackdown started, and all they're saying is give us the space to do what is needed, but do not take away from our daily bread. How now do you balance the two without affirming bad behavior in terms of, you know, attacking the police officers, but also the police officers taking advantage of the vulnerable Mwananchi?
First, I think those rules are very important. We need them implemented. Kenya has, I mean, I just get shocked at the road carnage in Kenya and how many people die over preventable accidents, and most of them is human error and roadworthy vehicles. So this is very important. But of course, there's also the challenge, and I mean, on Saturday, I happened to be a victim of the same, and police on, I think, on Thika Road at Juja, and they stop you. So there's abuse also of this implementation of the crackdown, and for no reason at all. For instance, a police officer came and told my brother, give us your, what do you call it, DL. And after the DL, oh, already there's an issue. And he asked, why? You've not even looked at the car, you know? And so there's a lot of abuse. And so many police officers are taking advantage of this to harass citizens, to intimidate them, because of course there's a national crackdown, and so everybody is meant to follow certain rules. So there's a balance that we need, and I think Matiang'i and the government needs to come in and first even just educate citizens, especially on traffic rules. What are their rights, especially during that contact with a police officer? Like this thing of getting into your car by force, that is not, should not be allowed. They should identify themselves. Half of the time the police don't want to identify who they are from their name and number, what charges. So all these rights that citizens should have, I think that's the challenge. And so the police abuse that. And there's a lot of abuse. And I think Matiang'i needs to deal with this, and IPOA also. And that's where this man is coming from. He shouldn't have done that because, again, the rule of law is very important. But I think, as we say, punda imechoka, and it's time we started dealing with police abuse, especially, and intimidation. But many, especially police officers at higher levels, they want the right thing done, but I'm not sure they know what's happening at the everyday level.
Okay, Dr. Mustafa, we have a very categorical interior CS, Fred Matiang'i, who says this crackdown will be implemented to the T. And he is using his officers to do this. Well, he has the best intentions, but it seems that the system has loopholes in it. So how can they maneuver this to ensure that the crackdown is implemented, but weed out the bad, you know, policemen within the system that are watering down the same crackdown?
Yeah, first of all, I have no doubt in my mind that Matiang'i is not going to make sure that these orders, or we get back our sanity on the road. I think he's going to do it, and he has to do it. If he does not do it, I don't see any other cabinet secretary who's going to do it. And it has to be done and carried out to such an extent that all those touts and road users, drivers that have made it a habit of continuously breaking traffic laws, driving dilapidated vehicles, unroadworthy vehicles, toe the line. Without that, then we are going to see the number of deaths on our roads, the utter carnage that seems to not to be preventable now is still going to just go on and on and on and on. The second point here I'd like to make is that there's absolutely no a reason why a civilian or even another police officer or whoever to beat up, violently confront a police officer in civilian or in uniform. This is something that should not have happened, and if it happens, whoever does that should be held responsible. Once you do that, and then the public psyche, once you start beating up a police officer who is in uniform, and the public psyche becomes such that you can actually beat up police officers, or you can tell them off even after committing a crime, then the rule of law is something that will degenerate. There will be very few brave police officers that are going to ensure that there is observance of law and that there is an orderly society. However, there are some police officers that have not lived up to their, rather to their expectations, and have taken bribes or themselves have broken the law, and they are very few. Those ones should not be used, or we should not generalize the few police officers that have actually broken the law to represent the entire police force or security forces in this country. And I also have no doubt in my mind that Matiang'i is not going to deal with that. He is going to definitely deal with that. And I think from what we are seeing already, he is dealing with that as much as the police and other security agencies are actually clamping down hard on this issue at hand, bringing back Michuki roles, that some police officers actually have been taken in because of bribery or taking bribes. So Matiang'i's sword cuts both sides, and the public should support Matiang'i on this. If this fails, then we have no reason to come and complain here or out there why there's continued carnage on our road.
Now, Nzau, before you actually comment on the same, just a different perspective to the same. Just earlier this week, Kenya youngest MP Gembe South Member of Parliament John Paul Mwirigi was arrested, and he was arrested for mobilizing probox and motorcycle drivers to oppose that same ongoing road safety crackdown. Now, the Tigania East Divisional Police Commander confirmed the arrest, which took place on Monday, and he said Mwirigi was apprehended in connection to an incident in which the transporters actually blocked a road to protest against the ongoing crackdown. Now, when you see a member of parliament involved in such, what does it now translate in the bigger scope of things in as far as implementing this law is concerned?
Yeah, it's sad. The head of state gifted him with a car the other day. Yeah, I know. But all the same, politicians should avoid being populist, just like the others who stormed the police station the other day asking to get someone released and all that. We should follow due process each time, and that's the point. But on the broader way to analyze it is to say, what do we want in order to have good governance? Now, there are three ingredients. Citizen oversight is very important to governance. And citizens should be always out to point out where they see anomalies. And for example, probably this tuk-tuk guy is not well informed what he should do when something like that happens. There are public complaints officers, ombudsman, settings, and all this. And someone should know what to do. So there's need for that citizen oversight, yes. But also we need responsive and responsible leadership in order to have good governance. When leaders set the wrong example, or they don't know how to go about it, sometimes they have a point, yes, but they don't have to mobilize people and ruin the day for everyone in a way that comes out, degrades the entire, distracts the peace and the tranquility of the country. Now, the other thing is what we call, support. Now, support is very important, and it is both within government and also within the citizenry. Now, support means civility and respect for just the rule of law as a citizen, as also as a law enforcer. Now, the courts have, or the judiciary, the judicial officer also, is supposed to protect the citizen. You need not throw stones at the police and fight them like that. It's also a sign of not being very organized and so on. And because if you're charged in the court of law, where aberrations or excesses by the executive have been committed, the judges will always have what we call protections. And these ones are, for example, mandamus, certiorari, habeas corpus, rule of law, ultra vires. The judge will always protect. The judge can say, produce the accused here, dead or alive, bring him here, habeas corpus. Make sure they don't overstay the time they should stay in the cell. They should be released on bail if they are not a danger to the public and so on. So let us all make use of the institutions that we have and what the Constitution has given us, so that we don't end up in a republic where we, like they say, banana, people do running around. There used to be a policeman called Onyango. When he was junior, he was a well-built officer, and he would chase the tout because he really believed in making sure the law, he would never let the tout go away. So he would chase a police, the tout. One time he chased one and caught him up at Upper Hill from town. And he carried him on his shoulders up to the place and charged him. Now, there are very few people who would be like Onyango, who was very strong. He's now a very senior officer and probably now almost retired, but he used to be very strong, and they would, but it was about his physique and so on. He would not beat him up, but he would make sure he will catch you. Now, you don't have to let the police chase you like Mr. Onyango. You just stop and find out why they want. You don't shout at them and tell them, nasty words and such things. So the civility and the support for the rule of law is what we must all uphold going forward.
All right.